What's good? I'm Matt Jumper. I'm a framer, designer, and developer, and today I want to walk you through 5 amazing framer sites to get you inspired. Now, in my opinion, one of the most important things as a designer is to surround yourself with good design. I think your ability to recognize good design from bad and your ability to keep elevating your standard is what will make you evolve as a designer. So let's get into it. All right, so to kick things off, we have the portfolio Oleg Masnyy. And this landing page here, just off the bat, if you're a designer trying to work on your portfolio, this is alone without scrolling. I'm already ready to hire this guy, to be honest. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, where like good design doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need, I don't even need to interact with your site yet. But this as a static image to look at is beautiful because I can see that he has great sense of typography. Like that font is beautiful. The spacing's beautiful. The layout here is perfect. We have some work as a preview underneath, but without even like going to the work, these could have been placeholders, like just gray boxes, and I'd still be super interested here. And this description as well, this bio, it's great because it tells me what he does, but also there's personality in here, which I think is important. If you're going to write anything, show some personality. I think that's great. Scrolling down, there's some nice subtle animations. Again, subtle, not overkill. And these hover states are super cool because it's a good use of the custom cursor without like forcing anything or being overkill. And what I love about this too is that this is view for case study, but this one says drag. You can actually like drag these images. So there's consistency in that, but it is a different functionality. So that's well done. And this layout of this grid, like different sizing and spacing and positions, it's hard to pull off just executionally to make this consistent and look good and feel balanced. And he did a great job of this. So kudos to him. And then at the bottom here, again, another piece of like great personality of like one seeing his actual face. It might be an emoji, but get to see what he looks like. Oh, and you get a hover state here. You can drag him. Bounces back, but super fun and like consistent with the site. And then if I go to the navigation, like these buttons here as well are just consistent with everything else that he's done. If I go to the info page, again, just beautiful layout and typography. You don't need anything fancy to make a beautiful site. The content here is straightforward, but it looks great. So that's the first one. Kudos to you, Oleg. If you want to get some work done, hit me up. All right, so next up we have ID. This is a pretty big British magazine centered around fashion, music, art, and youth culture. And for whatever reason, they don't have a full website. They have this landing page with what looks like the sole purpose or goal of just getting you to opt into their newsletter. And I can scroll here, and there's not going to be much. Basically, this image just transforms into behind the newsletter. And we have a scrolling ticker of all the categories in the site. From here, all I can do is just scroll back up to see these big, beautiful images again. What I like about this site is that basically it proves that you can make a solid landing page with next to no assets if you have great photos, have a focused message or a call to action, and have a good sense of typography and just like general spacing and layout. And lastly, like have an imagination when it comes to like animation in terms of like turning something simple into a bit of an experience, however small that could be, right? As a designer, if I were to give you a logo, some photos, some social links, a list of topics that this magazine covers, I don't know if you'd come up with something like this where it has an impact and it seems intentional beyond just like, oh, all we had was these couple things. Like this feels like bigger than it is. Again, it's not a massive thing. I'm not trying to like overhype this, but I'm just impressed by what they made out of what little they had. So yeah, that's the first one. And I just love the vibe of this company. So everything here just looks pretty solid. All right, next we have Lóvi AI. So even before these super cool animations, I actually just dug the composition, like the phone on top of this woman. I think it's just really well designed. And on top of that, we just have obviously some really cool animations that are a bit of a sequence. And it's not just like as you scroll, it's like as you're landing here, you're kind of watching a mini movie that was built in Framer. I think it's kind of cool. I also love this trend of these really narrow websites that's happening. Typically websites like the max widths are, up there in sizes, anywhere from like 1200 to like 1400 to maybe 1800, whatever. This one's sitting at 730, so pretty narrow. As I scroll, we get some really cool like text animations here, also with like some cool graphics in between. So all that's a nice effect. This is also a reason to have a narrow max width because basically like with these really complex animations, you want to typically work on fixed widths. So with that being said, like if it's 730, then you don't have to worry about the giant screens. This is like the widest it can go. And then when you go to tablet, it'll get a bit smaller, but it's only going to be one width. and then phone another one width. So that just enables you to work a bit more nimbly, I guess. As I keep scrolling, there's just going to be more animations and kind of transitions on the site. I think this is just a great example of like answering that request of like, let's make it, you know, kind of fancy. Let's get some animations in here, but it's elegant and all these animations serve a purpose, or they're really subtle if they're just like aesthetic. Big fan of everything here. As I keep scrolling here, some nice just like design change ups that feels just cohesive with this brand, and the branding here like being very soft. This all works. It's very cohesive. Some nice surprise kind of like hover states here. Those are kind of cool. Always nice to like bring some delight. I also love the subtle blurring of the background behind the navigation, where like there's no hard edge. It's just really subtle. And as I get to this section too, I find usually like social proof or like testimonials are usually like pretty hard to design for in a way that's like doesn't feel really generic, and also just like, again, cohesive with your site. So I think this is well done, a good reference. This FAQ is nice, just like this is a nice font. So using it in the bigger font size here and some smooth interactions, I think it looks really slick. Love this as well. I'm personally a big fan of like white buttons on like a light gray background, especially with these like soft blurs behind. I think it's really elegant. And as we scroll down here, this graphic obviously looks cool, but I love this like sticky, like bottom sticky scroll to reveal of the footer. I think that's really nice. And rightfully so, this was the site of the month as awarded by Framer. It's a beautiful site. So shout out, forget the guy who made this. Maybe I'll come back and mention that. All right, next we have Slides Agency. So while it's still fresh, I'll acknowledge that was a nice preloader animation. Quick, subtle, elegant. But looking here, bad slides kill good ideas. We bring them back to life. I think this is just a perfect example of basically like your website, and specifically like your website hero, basically selling exactly what you do in a way that this whole thing is a reflection of the service that they offer and the benefit that they're trying to sell. This is an agency that works on pitch decks. Clear by landing here that their whole thing is basically communicating both as clear and as simple as possible. So it's like giant bold type, minimal design, and clear intention, basically using like as little words as possible. It shows what they can do. I haven't even seen their work yet, but I know that this whole thing is a reflection of how they design their slides. I haven't even seen the work yet. So as you scroll, let's take a look. Without even getting to the next one, I love this parallax effect in an image. This is a really easy effect to do, but it always just feels so nice. Basically how to do this is you have your container here, whether it be a frame or a stack, and inside you have your image, and that image, basically you set it so the height is maybe 150% of the height of the container, whatever number makes sense. And then you add a scroll speed. So this image is basically scrolling at say 80% speed of the container it's in. And then that's how you're getting this parallaxing effect and you're getting that depth. So it's really nice, really easy to pull off. And I just kind of told you how to do it. The hover states here are nice too. You have like a tiny corner radius here, but as I hover, it actually increases. And then this arrow circle pops up and is sitting nicely within that corner. And also the text just has a nice like masked kind of shifting animation. So I just love how like big and simple this whole thing is. And obviously like some beautiful images. And then as I get to the bottom, just like some nice clean type. I like this navigation too, the subtle blurring, and because it's so small and so skinny, the fixed sizing actually works. It's not too invasive. Sometimes like a sticky navigation will just be like too tall and it'll just be in the way. This is really nice. Some great testimonials here. Another good layout example. The recent news here, as simple as it is, I think this looks just really solid. If I click into this too, I just love this layout, and you're getting this parallaxing effect too, which seems super cool. The rounded edges, everything's just very consistent, intentional, minimal, and just a good reflection of what they do. The footer though here, I really love for a couple reasons. One, like the scroll animation of like that parallaxing effect is solid, and having it sticky at the bottom and then taking over your full screen, a super solid call to action that's like super bold. That's great. My favorite thing about this is the click to copy email address. I love this because there's nothing I hate more when you go to somebody's site and there's a contact button and you click on it and it just opens your browser, your email browser or whatever, in a new window and just like tries to make a new email, when really like I want to copy your email address and make this email myself. So love that. A bunch of other pages in the site, I won't get into them. Another kind of small detail I noticed that I love is like when you're on a case study, the navigation actually changes from all those items to home and just next project, which makes sense. Basically, it's a really easy way to navigate. And if I want to see more, I can just go home and go from there. So yeah, that's my take on Slides Agency. And lastly, we have browsing mode. The reason why I love this site so much is not only just like the build of the site, the design of it, the execution, and I'll get to that in a second, but this is just a great reminder that Framer isn't just for like a portfolio site or for a brochure site, as some people call it. Framer can help you, take that little small idea or kind of side hustle idea and bring it to life. As I'm not saying this is anything complicated or anything new, but this is just a great example of something different, because we've seen this site, variations of this done hundreds of times, but I love this execution of it, and I love that it was built on Framer. So getting into the execution, some nice subtle animations as you load the site. The big image here, I love it. We have a nice, again, custom cursor here that's not forced or over the top. Just as the other sites I showed you, this is a nice way of doing it. Some nice hover states with just kind of darkening the images. Everything that's here, there's not a lot going on as far as the content goes, but the type here is nicely done. These buttons, as simple as they are, they're nice buttons. As I scroll down, the idea of showing a grid of 4 columns, these websites and this type of site, it's nothing new, but I love that they actually went full screen with this and didn't decide to show more, but made them bigger. The idea of these other sites, like putting a max width on their galleries of like, here's a bunch of nice sites to look at, but you're forced to look at them at, 100 pixels wide or like 200 pixels or whatever. Maybe 400, maybe I'm exaggerating, but not actually getting the full width like this, I think is a mistake. So I think this looks great. And they also went a step further and like put, I don't know if it's like the full logo or just the favicon that they pull, but you actually get like a logo beside each of these brands, which I think is super cool. So this is a nice browsing experience. This seems relatively new, so hopefully they put some more stuff in here. This is also the gift that keeps on giving. You came to this video for inspiration, and here you're going to find a bunch more. Some nice, just, functions of browsing more. I think this is as simple as it needs to be. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. When I click on a filter here, a nice page animation, again, not over the top. I love the hover states here, a little nudge up, and the tooltip. I think that's great. How this enters the screen, I love that. I love the transformation. And if I click on info, this page here isn't anything crazy, but like these images are just pretty tight and pretty cohesive. So this all looks great. I'm not sure if there's much more to be said about this, but I'm adding this to the list of sites that I visit pretty frequently to get more design inspo and elevate myself as a designer. All right, so that's my 5 sites for now. If there's any sick Framer sites that you want me to cover next time, or if you just think I should see, drop them in the comments below or send them to me on Twitter @MattJumper. See you all soon.